So, when you think of George Michael, what comes to mind? Is it the massive pop hits, that iconic leather jacket? Yeah, that's the image, right? But that's just scratching the surface. What we're gonna do here is peel back those layers, because behind that superstar was this incredibly complex artist, someone who was on this constant quest for creative freedom and just honesty. We're gonna get into the man and the music.
All right, let's start with a number. A huge one. 100 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That's how many records he sold, all over the world. I mean, that's not just successful. That's a massive cultural footprint. It puts him in the stratosphere, one of the best-selling artists of all time. So the big question is, how on earth did he pull that off?
Okay, so here's how we're gonna break it down. First, we'll dive into the whole Wham phenomenon. Then, we'll see how he found his own faith as a solo artist. After that, we'll look at his move toward a deeper, more serious kind of artistry. We'll also get into the man behind the music, the personal side. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about his legacy.
All right, let's kick things off with the Wham phenomenon. Our story starts back in the early 80s, and it doesn't start on some huge stage, no. It starts with two school buddies, George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley. They just had this passion for music and this idea that was about to totally set the pop world on fire.
And when I say they set the world on fire, I mean it happened fast, like incredibly fast. Look at this timeline. They form in '81. By '83, their first album hits #1 in the UK. '84, they're global superstars. '85, they're making history playing in China. And by 1986, it's all over, with a giant farewell show at Wembley. 5 years. That's it. A total whirlwind.
So what was the rocket fuel that launched them into orbit? It was this album right here, Make It Big. And honestly, the title wasn't just a hope, it was like they were calling their shot. This record didn't just do well. It was the sound of the mid-80s, just pure, infectious pop energy.
And the hits? I mean, just look at this list. It's insane that these all came from one album. You've got Wake Me Up Before You Go, Freedom, Everything She Wants, and of course, Careless Whisper, which, let's be honest, was kind of his first solo hit, even though it was still under the Wham name. These weren't just pop tunes, they were anthems. Everyone, everywhere knew these songs.
Okay, so next up, finding his own faith. See, even as Wham was at the absolute top of the world, George Michael knew he couldn't stay there. He had to grow. So the end of Wham wasn't some messy breakup. Not at all. It was a strategic move, a breakaway he needed to make to become the artist he was meant to be.
And this slide really lays out the transformation he was going for. On one hand, you have Wham, the bright, energetic teen pop duo. On the other, his solo career. He wanted to be seen as a serious, mature, soulful artist. The key here, artistic control. It was about moving from being a pop star to being the master of his own creative destiny.
And boy, did he realize that vision. In 1987, he drops his solo debut, Faith. And this wasn't just an album, it was an event. You know, the look, the leather jacket, the stubble, the guitar. It was this whole rock and roll vibe that just completely blew away everyone's expectations. He totally redefined himself right then and there.
And the album's power was in its sheer range. I mean, the songwriting was just on another level. Hit after hit after hit. You get the 50s rock and roll vibe of Faith, the super soulful father figure, the beautiful ballad One More Try, and then the controversial but amazing funk of I Want Your Sex. He was basically telling the world, yeah, I can do all of it.
And did the world respond? Oh yeah. Over 25 million copies sold. 25 million. This wasn't just him getting good reviews. This was a commercial juggernaut. It cemented him, without a doubt, as one of the biggest stars on earth.
But you know, selling records is one thing. Getting respect from your peers? That's a whole other ballgame. And in 1989, he got it. Faith wins the Grammy for Album of the Year. That's the big one. This was the ultimate stamp of approval. It was the moment George Michael went from pop star to, well, to a true, respected artist.
So, next we get to a deeper artistry. After winning the Grammy, after conquering the entire pop world, he could have just kept doing the same thing, right? But he didn't. He actually started to pull back from all the fame and the cameras. He wanted people to listen, really listen to his music. He wanted to be heard, not just seen.
And his next album's title kind of says it all, doesn't it? Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1. This was a huge pivot. Famously, he refused to be in his own music videos. You know the one for Freedom 90 with all the supermodels? That was the whole point.
He was forcing everyone to just focus on the songs, which were way more thoughtful, more serious.
Because when you strip everything else away, the image, the videos, the fame, what are you left with? That voice. I mean, come on, this quote nails it. One of the greatest pop and soul voices of all time. It was just undeniable. That voice was the foundation for everything. So powerful, so emotional. It's how he connected with people.
Okay, now we need to talk about the man behind the music. Because to really get his later work, you have to understand what was going on in his life, his personal story, and it was filled with incredible love, but also terrible loss and very public struggles. All of that got woven directly into his songs. A really pivotal moment was in 1998. He was arrested, and it basically forced him out of the closet in a very public, very harsh way. But here's the thing. Instead of hiding or being ashamed, he completely owned it. He took control of the story, embraced who he was, and became this really important and vocal advocate for LGBTQ+ rights.
But we have to go back a few years before that, because he had already been through an incredible private tragedy. He lost his partner, Anselmo Filippa, to an AIDS-related illness. And that loss, it was absolutely devastating for him. It shaped him for years to come, and he poured all of that pain and grief right back into his music. And that grief, it became this song, the absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking ballad, Jesus to a Child. It was such a raw, honest tribute to Anselmo. In fact, that song really set the whole mood for his next album, Older.
And you know, there was this other side to him that a lot of people didn't see. He was unbelievably generous, a huge philanthropist, but he did it quietly, no fanfare. He gave millions away to causes that mattered to him, HIV/AIDS organizations, children's hospitals, disaster relief, often completely anonymously.
So, finally, let's talk about his enduring legacy. When you look back, it's so much more than just the hit songs, right? It's really about the journey of an artist who fought tooth and nail for his creative freedom and for the right to be himself, and in doing so, he left this huge mark on our culture. And musically, his legacy is all about versatility. This was a guy who just refused to be put in a box. He could glide from pop to R&B to soul to dance music, and not just dabble in them, but master them. He blended it all together into a sound that was 100% his own. And if you need the stats to back it up, well, here they are. Over 100 million records, 2 Grammys, 3 Brit Awards, 4 MTV VMAs. The numbers just confirm what we all knew in our guts. He was an absolute titan.
So, that leaves us with this final question to think about. When it comes to an artist like George Michael, what's the real legacy? Is it the 100 million records sold? Or is it the life he lived? A life that was brave, complicated, generous, and ultimately authentic. You know, maybe for him you can't separate the two. Maybe they were one and the same.